around the nation. TYD Nation, Jeff Waldo here with you. Welcome to the show. It's Wednesday, it's hump day. We got a lot of stuff to go to. Interesting stuff. Iowa, more stuff on that. Then, of course, we've got the obligatory fun Trump story about how stupid he is. And how racist he is, too. So this is fun. Then we have Trump fan goes after Adam Schiff. We've got rich men crying over socialism, which is fun. And then, again, we'll talk about the app. And then we have a race in Texas between Jessica Cisneros and Henry Cuellar. And it appears Cuellar is getting a lot of help from Republican donors. Fun. So there's that. We also have some breaking news that happened before we came on the air. And that is Mitt Romney has made his announcement. Mitt Romney. About impeachment. So what happened? So Mitt Romney has come out and basically said that he will vote to convict Trump when it comes to impeachment. So that's his vote. He is voting yes on impeachment or to remove the president. And now suddenly everybody who was against him back in 2012 is suddenly now on Team Mitt. And it infuriates the hell out of me. Are you serious? So here's the thing. The Senate trial was set up with one specific purpose in the Senate, right? To acquit Donald Trump, right? So he's acquitting Donald Trump. And, or I should say they're acquitting Donald Trump. Mitt Romney is not. He's one of the voices that says, no, we're going to convict Donald Trump. I believe he abused his power. No, I think it's absolutely correct. He did abuse his power. And he did obstruct Congress. And he is guilty of everything. And look, even the Republicans admit it. But Mitt Romney doesn't get credit. Why? Why am I not giving Mitt Romney credit? Because the fix was already in. He could literally vote any way he wants. And in fact, he basically gets a pass to do so. So now, to be fair, he is from Utah. It's a strong Mormon contingent. They all don't like Donald Trump. So maybe he was going to vote this way anyway. But at the end of the day, it means absolutely nothing. No change, just nothing. It means nothing. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to give Mitt Romney credit. He's not a hero of the resistance. He votes with Trump almost all the time. But right now, and it bothers me to no end that there are centrist Democrats out there, basically, your resistance folks, right? That are like, Mitt Romney, my hero. Mitt Romney is Mr. 47%. Remember, his candidacy sunk after, and boy, these were much simpler days, right? His candidacy sunk because he called basically half the country takers and moochers. Okay, moochers and takers. That guy is the new resistance hero. I guess Republicans and Democrats, establishment anyway, are much, much closer than we ever could have thought. I mean, come on. Come on, you're going to just forget everything. Again, Mitt Romney votes almost on like with Trump on just about everything. Give Trump whatever he wants. I mean, and then goes, oh no, I made the principal choice and voted in favor of convicting Donald Trump. Well, good for you. You want a freaking cookie? I'm sorry. It's just no credit given. I literally don't care. Don't care. He's not a hero. He's not a good person. Yes, he voted the correct way. But it's really easy to vote the correct way when you know there's not going to really be any political consequences. And so he's not going to get a backlash from his voters in Utah. And the only thing he's going to get is maybe some mean tweets from Donald Trump. But again, that doesn't impact his power whatsoever. So understand, Mitt Romney is in the safest position that he could ever be in. He will get no negative consequences. And he will get a lot of praise. The establishment media will be falling all over him, and they've already started. They've already started falling. Oh, Mitt Romney, new hero of the resistance. How brave of you! I can't believe you would stand up and buck Donald Trump like that. What's next? Now they're going to run Mitt Romney against the Democrats. Will probably try to run Mitt Romney against Bernie Sanders. Come on, dude. Come on. This is ridiculous. Ridiculous with a capital D. Okay, anyway. You say I'm a little frustrated by this. All right. So, look, let's go further here and actually start the show. Virginia Thomas says I'm not on his team, but that took some big ones because they've already started and he is going to be running the party on a rail. Yeah, but it doesn't really impact his. He could probably run as independent and win now in Utah. Again, because his voter base is basically safe. And so, it's not going to have really that many more negative impacts on him personally, aside from the tweets. Mitt Romney should run against Trump. Oh, dear God. Here we go again. It's the same thing that they did try to do with John McCain. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. These are bad people. All right. Anyway, you can disagree with me. I just think I'll just think you're wrong. Okay. The only surprise is that Doug Jones will vote for impeachment. That shouldn't even been in question. Doug Jones is supposed to be a Democrat, right? Doug Jones, nope. No, it's going to be a really difficult decision for me to vote in favor of impeachment. Romney, Delaney, 2020. Get out of here. Get out of here. Ridiculous. All right. Now you guys are just having fun with me. Let's move on. Let's get into the stories. All right. President Trump was once a well-known birther. Now that, of course, is the conspiracy where President Obama was, in fact, not actually president. So this is their not my president, which is ironic because they always come back and say, well, Trump's your president. Trump's your president. They literally tried to have a movement to say that Obama was not their president by claiming that he was born in another country. So now Donald Trump was also in that movement. He went all over cable TV talking about how, no, I'm going to find the birth certificate. I got people out there in Hawaii. I got investigators out there. They're going to find the birth certificate. And so you would hear that all over Fox News. And this is years before Donald Trump actually started running, right? But all of that changed in 2016 when he won the Republican primary. And his campaign decided that they were going to release a statement that disavowed that conspiracy theory. That is, of course, part of the pivot from a primary election to a general election. They try to attempt to appear less crazy, right? So now, again, that's really the change, right? I don't think a lot of his staffers really understood where the president or what the president actually thought about this, right? Because according to a new book with excerpts that they had given to Vanity Fair, Trump's campaign tried really hard to get him to disavow the birther conspiracy. So his response to that, though, was indignant rage and a 7-minute diatribe against Hillary Clinton and Obama, and that left his staffers seriously confused on what to do. Now, the book explains, quote, at first, the Republican presidential nominee was met with dead silence, with those on the line confused, and it's a phone call, as to what the optimal response could possibly be, wrote the authors of the forthcoming book, Sinking in the Swamp. All right. Multiple advisors wanted to tell him that his dictated statement was far, far, far too long, again, 7 minutes, and would cause many more headaches for the campaign than it would resolve. If released, this would defeat the purpose of everything the campaign staff was trying to accomplish on this front, to basically make his campaign appear to be less crazy by disavowing the racist birtherism theory. And yet, here comes the fun part. Nobody wanted to upset Trump, whose legendary hair trigger temper could easily be set off by the slightest sign of perceived insolence. Basically, we have to be careful or we're going to upset the baby. That's what the staff has always had to deal with, approaching Donald Trump with kid's gloves, or else he throws a fit. Now, Hope Hicks, when she was there, had gently tried to explain to Trump that the statement should be shorter and less antagonistic. And the GOP candidate asked others in the line whether they agreed with this. Quote, no campaign official who chimed in sided with Trump, the authors wrote, with each of them giving some pussyfooting version of, quote, this is insane, why would we do this, adding a sir or two to be safe. Oh, sir, no, you don't understand. The president was actually not born in Kenya. That's just bullshit that we put out to, for the rubes, right? For the idiots in our party, the idiots and racists. We don't actually have to say that anymore because that's actually a small part of our electorate. Now we actually have to pivot to the general. The primary is over. But here's the thing about Trump. He is the Fox News president. And he thinks, no. What are you guys talking about? No, I believe in that. Obama was born in Kenya. No, he's definitely born in Kenya, and he's not an American. So no, don't point it out to me. And by the way, me pointing it out, well, did you hear those people at my rally when I said he wasn't born in America? They went crazy. They love it. So I have to keep telling them that. And yes, I probably do believe it myself. As the book explains, their comments were met with a brief but uncomfortable silence. And then that's when Trump erupted. Quote, I want that statement, the candidate bellowed. Get me that effing statement. I want that goddamn effing statement right now. Where the F is it? That's Trump. Total and complete meltdown. This is your very stable genius. So he blows up at these guys on the phone because he wants his 7-minute rant against Obama and Hillary to be his official statement on birtherism. Get me that statement. I want that statement now. So look, obviously they didn't put out that statement. So what happened? Well, it turns out that senior communication advisor Jason Miller somehow managed to get Trump to agree to release a brief statement. Now, the caveat here, the catch is that it had to be signed in his own name, Jason Miller, not Donald Trump's. Now, that allowed Trump to give his own statement during an event at the Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C., where he did, at a certain point, briefly disavow birtherism. Oh, yeah, no, I don't believe in that anymore. Did he? Does he really disavow it, though? Does he? I mean, look, he's not running a campaign right now, but he will be very soon. And already he's going after, he's going after the candidates, obviously. But at some point, he's going to evoke Obama because he can't let it go. And of course, Hillary Clinton, because he can't let that go. Now, here's the fun part, right? Even more fun than before. So he was pretty mad that he didn't get to put out this rambling nonsense about Obama and Hillary, right? So within 24 hours, he just forgets about it. Gone. In fact, according to the book, barely 24 hours after showing so much fury and dejection, he had already started forgetting about it and soon moved on. He wasn't pestering his staff about it, they wrote, and he was back to his crooked Hillary and lock her up shtick. In this case, crisis was averted only because it slipped Trump's elderly mind. And that was that. No batshit written statement. Awesome. Think about this, right? The Democratic establishment, Hillary Clinton, who had all this money, lost to a guy who could barely remember what he had done or what he had wanted a day earlier. Really? Look, I've said it before. Fox News president, right? And I am 100% certain that he thought, thought he was an act, right? That he was playing a character and wasn't really that dumb, right? They thought that his staffers, they believed that, and then they find out the truth that, oh my God, no, that's who he really is. This isn't just an act. And yes, of course, Donald Trump lies shamelessly and says whatever he can to get applause from his base, but he's also that dumb. And I think his staff originally constantly would underestimate how dumb and shameless he is. And so the lesson on that is, hey, as we're going into the 2020 election, once we're done with the Democratic nomination, we need to remember that, and let's not make the same mistakes that we did with putting someone like Hillary Clinton, an establishment figure who, has all this baggage that Trump will attack, shamelessly so, and lie about going into 2020. Okay. Next one. Death threats have unfortunately become a common occurrence among both media and political figures, especially now that the right wing, especially the far right, has become even more fervent in their defenses of Donald Trump. Now, an example was received by Representative Adam Schiff's office during the impeachment inquiry. According to a report, an Arizona sex offender, right, was charged last year with making threatening phone calls to Representative Adam Schiff. Now, Adam Schiff is right now most well known as being one of the House impeachment managers. So he's one of the guys out there basically making the case that we should impeach Donald Trump and remove him from office for abuse of power, obstruction of Congress. That's the charges that he was impeached on. And so he was in charge of also presenting evidence in the House. So now, the man's name who threatened Mr. Schiff is Jean-Peter Meister. And he is, again, a registered sex offender from Tucson, Arizona. Now, they identified him through phone records as a caller who had left a threatening message on Schiff's office voicemail, according to court documents. So now, during their trial, cops had played the message for the 52-year-old, who told investigators that he didn't remember making the call, but admitted that he had gotten drunk and agreed that it must have been him on the recording. So not shameless at all. It was a very specific, very violent threat. I'm actually not going to read that to you because it's pretty bad. Now, what precipitated this threat, other than, of course, drinking, right? Which this man seems to have an issue with that. Well, he told investigators that he had been watching Fox News directly before that call. Adam Goldman from the New York Times tweeted this out. Thank you to Nick Martin, who highlighted in his news letter a federal case in Arizona. A registered sex offender was indicted last year after threatening to kill Representative Adam Schiff. What prompted this? He said he got angry after seeing something on Fox News. Now, that's bad enough, right? But not only is he a criminal, registered criminal, with a record, he also is still able to own guns. Meister, who has felony convictions for both aggravated drunken driving and second-degree rape, has also admitted to owning a muzzleloader. Now, look, muzzleloader, right? However, they didn't just find a muzzleloader. They actually also found, after a search warrant, an AR-15 a 380 caliber handgun and a 9 millimeter handgun, as well as various ammunition. So they found a bunch of guns in this guy's house. Now, wait a minute. He's got felonies, right? Well, it turns out that his right to possess firearms were restored by a Maricopa County court, and his three DUIs were also expunged. So there's your legal, responsible gun owner and Trump fan. Yeah. Oops. So now Meister was arrested October 25th, and during the time of the arrest, he had smelled of alcohol and had specifically said, F Adam Schiff, as he was taken to jail. The best people. What totally balanced human being. Now, look, I could sit there and dunk on him all day, right? But it's not necessarily about him. And yes, whatever. He's got a lot of problems, substance abuse among them. But it's actually kind of about the effect of Fox News as well. Again, Fox News, their entire purpose is to rile people up with conservative propaganda, right? And so they'll go and they'll, say the most terrible things about Adam Schiff and how the Democrats are lying and how they're just trying to take down the president and all that stuff, right? So that gets people angry, right? And hate and fear and anger is pretty much Fox News' bread and butter. And you know who else it is, butter that is? Donald Trump. So Trump himself also spreads the same thing. He talks about Second Amendment solutions back in the campaign, for example, against Hillary Clinton. Talks about getting, roughing people up, get them out of here, kick their ass, all that stuff. And so he encourages violence as well. And so not only that, but he also openly attacks Adam Schiff on social media, right? And says, vile things against his enemies. And together, Fox News and Donald Trump create this atmosphere of pure awfulness. There are unhinged people out there, and all they need is a little bit of a nudge to set them off. And now, of course, in this case, they're all armed. It's a pretty scary thought, especially as we realize that we have little to no hope of getting any sort of common sense gun regulation in this country under the Republican Party. And so, sweet dreams. Yikes. All right. All right. Let's move on here. Let's get some rich people crying, because that's always fun. All right. As progressive candidates continue to rise and continue to do better, and progressive ideas continue to become more and more popular and featured, there are a lot of people who are understandably against it, which would, of course, would be the billionaires. Now, in response to this rise of progressivism all over the country, corporate media has featured more and more billionaires crying and whining about somebody trying to, for example, raise their taxes. Now, I've got a lot of examples of this, and we've also got some video as well. But first, here we've got CNBC. Now, CNBC is a great example of this. A headline back from January 20th was titled, BP CEO chides AOC and Bernie Sanders for their completely unrealistic Green New Deal ideas. So now in this, they interviewed outgoing BP chief Bob Dudley. And what Dudley had done was criticized climate proposals from Senator Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Quote, they have a completely unrealistic idea of the complexity of the global energy system, Dudley told CNBC's Squawk Box from the World Economic Forum in Davos. To sum up the story, a CNBC journalist went to Davos, which, by the way, that's where all the rich people go and talk about how they cannot solve the world's problems, because they're not really serious about it, because that would actually involve them paying more taxes. Instead, they talk about how the world is unfair to them and how they deserve even more. So now they go there, and this CNBC journalist went there to get ideas about quote unquote socialism and the environment from the CEO of BP. So now BP is just one of the 100 corporations responsible for over 70% of the world's emissions. And at no point during this interview did the journalist mention a conflict of interest that an oil billionaire would have with sweeping legislation like the Green New Deal. Instead, they focused on how, quote unquote, far left AOC and Bernie Sanders are in their policies, which is funny because their policies are actually supported by the majority of Americans. So are you actually admitting then that it's not the people that are, in the center, in the middle, that you have to go and reach, that the people are actually far, far left, and that it's the media establishment and, corporate media and the politicians, that they are the ones that are far right? I mean, it's a strange admission, but now Dudley, he said at the Abu Dhabi International Petroleum Exhibition and Conference, said there's just a lot of people, very well-meaning people, who want to believe that there is a simple solution. And of course, he's talking about climate change. Well, here's the thing. The Green New Deal is not a simple solution. It's actually an incredibly large, bold undertaking to transform our entire economy away from fossil fuels into renewable energy. It is incredibly detailed and bold, those proposals. All right. And there's also even legislation. So we have the technology as well. Nothing that's in the Green New Deal hasn't already been invented. Okay. We have the money for it. It's not going to cost like $90 trillion or whatever the Republicans are talking about. It also doesn't kill cows or airplanes or any of the other outrageous BS they talk about. We have the support among the people. The only thing missing is political will. And that's, of course, because these billionaires continue to fund our politicians so that nothing gets done on this front. And the reason that they fund these politicians is that people like Dudley, well, they're going to lose out. They're fossil fuel, billionaires. Might I even say oligarchs? I know somebody at MSNBC is going to get suddenly super mad at me for calling these people oligarchs, but that's exactly what they are. Anyway, more. Here you have another Davos interview. And this is where they talked to CEO Jamie Dimon. So now this time they talked about socialism, and he explains how socialism is just absolutely terrible and how millennials just don't understand.
I don't think they understand. Honestly, I don't think people understand what socialism is. Socialism is when the government controls companies. There is no example where the government controls companies, they do it well, and they don't start to use it for votes, satisfying people. They don't even want competition, because if we're two government companies, why have competition? They do it for jobs and votes. They have bad allocation of capital. Most state-owned enterprises don't do a particularly good job. Just take a look around the world, and they become corrupt over time. That does not mean that capitalism is perfect. It doesn't mean that every public company is perfect. No, there are flaws.
Do you think that Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren are socialists in the construct that you talked about it, or in the construct of this idea of a democratic socialist, which is something that may feel more European in some ways?
I don't want to talk about any particular people, but if you're talking about governments controlling corporations, that's socialism. You can do it in a small way or you can do it in a big way.
Okay, look, he's wrong. Socialism actually isn't the government controlling corporations. Socialism is where the workers, the people who actually work at the factories, control the factory. That's what that is. And then, of course, there are different variations. There's, for example, worker-owned co-ops. There's also places, for example, Germany, where you would have, investors and workers both sitting on the corporate board. And so these workers will have a larger stake in the company. And so there's many different ways that you can do that. And there's a lot of nuance in these discussions in the policies that you could do. Bernie Sanders is not, well, to be fair, Bernie Sanders is talking about worker controlled companies as well, or having workers. Elizabeth Warren's talking about it too, having workers be represented on the boards and having ownership and stake in these companies. Now, you look at where that's been done, and it's actually incredibly successful for a model. These businesses are very successful. And there is, of course, long-term growth. There's good jobs, good paying jobs, and all that stuff. And it has a lot of positive economic benefits from being able to do that. So what he's talking about, oh no, bad allocation of capital is the government owning, not at all true, not at all representative. In fact, what Bernie Sanders is mainly talking about, he's talking about a form of social democracy. And that's what's most successful, where you have elements of capitalism, private property rights, etc., and elements of socialism, where you have strong safety nets and worker protections. And so all of that comes into a mixed market system. We do not have that here in America. We have a system that is massively weighed in favor of people like Jamie Dimon. And so you can see that we actually understand a lot more than the Jamie Dimons of this world realize. And we also know that our current system benefits mainly only a few at the top. We're not actually duped into thinking that we are temporarily embarrassed millionaires. And if we only stop buying avocado toast and lattes, we too can become a wealthy capital owner, as long as we're willing, of course, to first work 5 low-wage jobs plus take out massive student loan debt while working as an unpaid intern. And also would really help if we just had rich parents. And of course, doing all of that while putting money away for savings. No, it's ridiculous. What we support is simply higher wages, universal guaranteed health care, in this case, insurance that is covered by the government and paid for by our own tax money, as well as an education system that does not leave people in massive amounts of debt. We already have a universal universal education system. It's called the public school system, and we can model as a way to do free college tuition, free public colleges and universities like that system. I don't think it's hardly radical at all, but that's not all. We also, for the crying, we also now have multi-billionaire Goldman Sachs alum Leon Cooperman. Leon Cooperman also getting a little upset at a wealth tax by Elizabeth Warren. Now, first, he said, quote, "We have the best economy in the world. Capitalism works. And that Sanders' far left agenda is counterproductive. I'm not in favor of raising taxes. Taxes are high enough." So that's Cooperman on Bernie Sanders. Well, now here's Cooperman as well on Elizabeth Warren and the wealth tax.
I mean, I think it's kind of obvious people can not only see the emotion on your face, but hear it in your voice when you talk about this, Lee. Why?
I care. That's it.
Oh, He cares. He cares so much. But here's the thing. When he talks about how it's absurd to have a wealth tax, right? We can't have a wealth tax. It's an absolute disaster. We're already taxed too much. We're taxed too much. They're too high. No, actually, the corporate tax, 21%, is actually lower than taxes on the middle class as a percentage. The richest man in the world, our tax system allows him, Jeff Bezos, and his company, Amazon, to pay nothing in federal taxes. Oh, but you don't understand. Taxes are too high. They're too high. Well, here's the thing. They are too high on working people, regular Americans, especially in exchange for the benefits that we receive from that tax money. Because right now, we don't feel as if we get anything in return from paying taxes, right? So we pay all this money into the federal government, and yes, we do get things like roads and bridges, and that's really important. Which, by the way, right now, for example, Michigan's got some of the worst roads imaginable, and we have bridges that are literally falling apart. But here's the thing: they're not using our money to do that. What they're using our money instead is to give it to defense contractors, wealthy CEOs, people that run oil companies in the form of subsidies. That's where our money's going. We're not guaranteed health care with our tax money, or an affordable higher education, or affordable child care. Instead, our money is doled out to the real takers, the multimillionaires and billionaires that decide to game the system using their money to buy our politicians. These corporations, again, take billions of dollars in subsidies. None of the articles ever mention any of that. And also, going back to JP Morgan, right? And Goldman Sachs, by the way, none of these articles mention their role in the 2008 global financial crash, or the $29 trillion in bailouts their industry received after they crashed the economy. So, yeah, don't cry to me, right? Don't give me the crocodile tears, because I'm not going to believe it. You got all the benefits, and you know what? There are still millions of people who have not recovered from the 2008 financial crash. Now, there's also more. Healthcare. CNBC posted a United Healthcare CEO David Wichmann's claim that Medicare for All would, quote, destabilize the nation's health system, leading to a crisis and a, quote, severe impact on the economy. No, you know where the impact would actually be? On his wallet. He literally runs a health insurance company, which would lose out under a Medicare for All system. But you know what? We would win, the American people would win, because we would actually, all of us, be able to have health care. Yeah. Now, it's almost as if CNBC is just allowing wealthy owners of businesses that would be impacted by these changes to give their opinion on these changes. I mean, look, if your paycheck depends on being against something that is good for the majority of Americans, then you are going to be against the majority of Americans. I mean, I would love to see them talk to somebody who has $100,000 in student loan debt. Have them weigh in on the problem, right? Or a regular person who has cancer and can't afford their treatments, or somebody who's been having to ration their insulin. Okay, look, I'm sure your readers or your viewers would vastly benefit from having a point of view, the point of view of somebody who is not or does not have a conflict of interest. But no, the reason that they're going to go to the billionaires is because they have a conflict of interest. Those billionaires are losing their special place because their system is failing so many people already. And these companies, CNBC, well, these are media companies. These are media corporations. And guess what? They also lose out when you have higher taxes on the wealthy and corporations. Now, one more here. We have CBS, right? That talked to Verizon CEO Lowell McAdam. he called Bernie Sanders' views contemptible and said that big companies are an easy target for candidates looking for convenient villains for the economic distress felt by many of our citizens. Who do you think is creating the economic distress? The companies and their CEOs are gobbling up pretty much the entire pie. All right? You can tell I'm hungry. Now, look, I know we've beaten up on CNBC. We just beat up on CBS. But in reality, it's all of them. MSNBC, New York Times, Fox News, obviously. All of them, they're all corporate media. So they're going to cape for corporations because they are corporations. And that's why they defend their own. But in reality, look, if you examine who they led on to talk about issues, especially on CNBC, you're going to see that corrupt media and big companies, they hate progressive ideas because they will lose out with those progressive ideas while the rest of the American people win. So that is why they're going to do everything that they can stop, or that they can, to stop someone like Senator Bernie Sanders. Okay, I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back. We got a couple more stories here. We got the ties between the app that failed in Iowa and the Democratic Party. We're going to go into detail about that. And then we've got Henry Cuellar versus Jessica Cisneros versus all of the dark money. So we've got that story coming up at the end. So stay right here. Please like and share the stream, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes around the nation.
Mike Pounds.
Welcome back to the show, Around the Nation, right here, 218 Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so got time to shout out a couple of patrons, patreon.com/218 Nation, Brian Scheffler and James Wormley. So thank you, Brian, James. You guys are wonderful. You want to sign up to support independent progressive media? We need you more than ever. Go to patreon.com/TYTNation or become a channel member by hitting the join button below. So we need to build that up as well. All right, guys. Let's get into more news. Hold. All right. With Tuesday's election results still trickling out due to the shit show that was the Iowa caucus, I think we're currently at 71% of the results. New details have come out about the developer of the app that caused the meltdown. Now, the app was created, as I've reported before, by a company called Shadow Incorporated. Now, it is a for-profit software firm that says its mission is to, quote, build political power for the progressive movement by developing affordable and easy-to-use tools for teams and budgets of any size, which makes me question what exactly the Iowa Democratic Party budget was when doing this app. So now, obviously, the use of this app was a disastrous decision, but that decision was apparently based on not the usefulness of the app or obviously the technical abilities of the app or even the talent of the programmers. No, it apparently is based on connections with Democratic Party officials. So let's go through that. Now, the New York Times reported that after the rollout of this, many precinct chiefs had trouble simply downloading the app. Now, there is a reason for that. It's fairly easy to download an app onto your phone, unless you're a complete Luddite or somebody that's just not comfortable with technology or hasn't learned. It's fairly easy, right? So now, these people who are caucus chairs, well, they generally know what they're doing. However, they were notified of the app, about a month prior, and then were told how to use it 3 days before. So again, they knew how to do it, and so they still had problems being able to download it. And the reason is that the app was not deployed through traditional app stores, according to Motherboard, or even sideloaded using an enterprise certificate. Instead, it was deployed through mobile testing platforms, including Apple's Test Flight and a similar service that services both iOS and Android called Test Fairy. Both platforms are for apps that are not yet finalized. Well, now, why are we using a non-finalized app for a caucus in Iowa? One of the most, actually, probably, it's the first state, so it's super, super important, right? Not for delegate counts or anything like that, but actually for momentum, campaign momentum, and media coverage, right? So why would you release an app that's not even tested, not even finalized through this, and has a lot of errors? Now, the app was also distributed using Test Fairy platform's free tier and is not its enterprise one, which deletes any app data after 30 days. How convenient, right? And limits the number of test users that can access the app to 200. I'm pretty sure there were more than 200 that needed to use that app. I'm just saying. Oh my God. All right. So now, as a result, multiple caucus chairs reported problems with not only maintaining the app, but of course logging in. And so with this app failing, they had to switch to their backups. They had to switch to the phones. Well, the phones also started failing. And then at that point, pretty much everything fell apart. As a result, caucus goers were there for hours and backup systems had to be deployed. Now, look, joining a caucus already is basically an all-day commitment, right? Where you apparently can't bring your own food, water. You have to stand basically in that caucus area for a long time, hours and hours and hours, right? With these delays, it got even worse for the caucus goers and mostly for the volunteers and the chairs. So now there were backup systems, right? And that's where we're getting the numbers from now. But as we can see, it's an incredibly slow process. So the app, of course, was obviously not ready for release. It hadn't been tested, hadn't been completed, had a lot of coding errors, and by the way, was an absolute mess. And the company itself, Shadow Inc., was like, yo, our bad, dog. We're sorry. We're totally and completely sorry. Okay, so with all of that established, who thought that was a good idea? And the answer there is super important. It turns out that there was a company that has some ties to Democratic Party officials. So now the owner, or I should say the investor in Shadow Inc., was Acronym. So now Acronym is ran by co-chair and Democratic operative Tara McGowan. So now McGowan, when the chaos started in Iowa, was like, oh, no. Acronym funds a lot of different companies. And Shadow's just a really small part of our investments. And in fact, they've got so many other investors as well. However, according to internal company documents and sources close to the firms and public records, Acronym actually worked really closely with Shadow Inc. In fact, they even share office space in Denver, Colorado. Again, oops. Last year, McGowan wrote on Twitter that she was so excited to announce Acronym has acquired Groundbase, a firm that included their incredible team led by Gerard Namera, plus are launching Shadow, a new tech company to build smarter infrastructure for campaigns. McGowan also noted that with Shadow, we're building a new model incentivized by adoption over growth. In an interview on a related podcast last month, McGowan described Namira as the CEO of Shadow, which is the technology company that Acronym is the sole investor in now. Sole investor in Shadow. Not only that, but you also have a person with knowledge of company culture who asked to remain anonymous for fear of reprisal, shared communication showing that top officials at the company regularly expressed hostility to Senator Bernie Sanders and his supporters. So there's your political bias, right? McGowan was also married to Michael Hale, a senior strategist in the Buttigieg campaign. And according to Lee Fong over at The Intercept, and this is just his, him writing this article, right? He says that there's no evidence of any preference of candidates that had any effect on the coding issue that is stalling the Iowa results. I don't know for sure, right? There's a lot of coincidences, okay? But with Pete declaring victory and holding a small lead, with about 71% of the vote counted, he is getting all the media buzz and attention that was reserved for the winner. And so he continues going out there and saying, this was a victory, this was a victory. The media is reporting on that as well. And so, I mean, that is an important part of the context. Whether or not that was just, Pete just taking advantage of the situation, as he is somebody who would absolutely do something like that. Let's be honest. Or a calculated effort, who knows? I certainly don't. But more on Shadow here. The Iowa Democratic Party and the Nevada Democratic Party, who, by the way, has backed off from use of this app, had retained Shadow to develop the Caucus app. Shadow had been retained also for digital services by Buttigieg's and Biden's campaign. Well, now, it didn't turn out well for Biden. Now, Biden had actually paid Shadow over $1,000 for text messaging services back in July. Buttigieg, however, Buttigieg's campaign had paid them $42,500 for software-related services back in July. And look, it's not like this is the only thing that Shadow does. It's just the main thing that they're kind of known for now. So now we have other connections here to figures who might also not be so impartial, right? Shadow was launched by former staffers to Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. Along with Namira, you also have Krista Davis, Anna Rao, and James Hickey. Now, acronym, which includes a hybrid model of a 501c4 entity that does not disclose donors and a super PAC that does. It has also been a favorite for deep-pocketed Democratic donors. Donald Sussman, the founder of Paloma Partners, and Michael Moritz, a partner at Sequoia Capital. They, of course, also not fans of Bernie Sanders or progressives. They each donated $1 million to Acronym last year. A filmmaker, Steven Spielberg, had also gave $500,000. And investor Seth Klarman, once a major donor to Republican causes, gave $1.5 million to Acronym. So all these people, most of them have ties to the Democratic Party and with Hillary Clinton and have given big money. So this company then develops an app, right? Deploys it for a very important first in the nation Iowa caucus. And with that app being untested, incomplete, and given to people 3 days before the caucus to figure it out, fails uncontrollably, causes a massive clusterfuck in which Pete Buttigieg takes advantage of in order to boost himself. That is a massive amount of both coincidence and complete and total incompetence. You have corruption, what appears to be, self-dealing, like being able to, help your buddies in the Democratic Party with your business. Hey, oh, look, we just happen to have all this money for contracts for this app. Well, I know you're a friend. We both served Hillary Clinton together. Well, I'm going to contract your company now to develop this app. You get money, we all get paid, and everything's great. That's probably what happened. I don't know if necessarily they planned this in order to steal the election. It seems rather strange of an idea because in reality, you have backups. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't do that, but I'm not saying for certain that we can prove that they did. And so, look, I think they rewarded themselves. I think they gave them their friends fat contracts in order to develop these apps. And so, yeah, it's greed. Now, for Pete Buttigieg is an opportunist. He's going to do anything that he can to try to win. He's not going to win, but he still declared himself a winner because, hey, that helps him get a bump. He needed to be first or second in Iowa, and it looks like he was going to get second anyway. And so here we go. He now gets more access to wine caves and to more donors, and so he can continue his race. Again, I don't think he's going to do very well. I think Bernie Sanders is still set up to be a front runner now that Joe Biden did so terribly. And I'm also not saying the DNC isn't corrupt. Absolutely, they are. They're corrupt in almost all the stupidest ways imaginable. In reality, this is going to hurt the DNC and hurt trust in the DNC even more than before. So it just seems like it's stupid. But as usual, we're not going to know the answers. And with Democrats, look, with Democrats or any elected official or any person looking to make a buck, you just got to follow the money. And usually with Democrats, if you follow the money, you tend to follow or to end up in the source of their incompetence. They're just paid to lose. All right. One more here, real quick. Now, Representative Henry Cuellar is an incredibly conservative Democrat. And now he has a challenger who is a progressive, Jessica Cisneros. She's a Justice Democrat and is, like I said, deeply progressive. So now, in order to keep his position, Cuellar is getting a lot of outside support. So now Cuellar is a Trump Democrat. He votes with Trump about 70% of the time. And he's now getting millions of dollars from Republican groups as well as corporations. Now, the latest entrance into this race is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Now, they have just started a 6-figure TV ad buy in favor of Cuellar. So now they're teaming up with the Laredo Chamber and Texas Association of Business in order to defend Cuellar against Cisneros. which shows me that they are deeply afraid of the challenge Cisneros poses. And that is awesome. In fact, Scott Reed, U.S. Chamber's senior political strategist, said, quote, on supporting a Democrat, because generally the U.S. Chamber of Commerce supports Republicans, which, of course, you look at Cuellar and his history, he basically is a Republican. But Reed says this is a first for us, and we're putting our money where our mouth is. It's game on, Justice Democrats. To which we say, bring it, bitch. So far, this race has seen over $2 million in outside spending. This is according to the FEC. Now, there are outside groups spending in favor of Cisneros, but the money is far, far weighted on the side of Cuellar. And it's not a surprise that these dark money groups are supporting Cuellar. He, again, literally does everything corporations want him to do. He's gone to bat for the rich, for Trump. He does not serve regular people. I think it's time to get this guy out, and the best chance that we have is Cisneros. And they know that. She is a real progressive. She's in favor of Medicare for all, free college, living wage, Green New Deal. She does not take corporate PAC money, which is important as well. No dark money, no Chamber of Commerce money, nothing. That means she's actually going to serve you, regular people. And so Chamber of Commerce, they're scared of that, and that's why they're spending so much money. Now, so far, Cuellar has raised a lot of money, but in the last quarter, something amazing happened. Buoyed by regular people, because, again, that's all she takes money from, Cisneros outraised Cuellar. She raised $517,000 compared to Cuellar's $431,000. And again, that has these guys spooked. And that, by the way, that is all small donors, small dollar donors. Now, overall, she still has a massive disadvantage. Cuellar, according to filings, has about $2.9 million cash on hand. Cisneros does not have near that. She's got about $661,000 on hand. So if you can help, donate to her campaign. Because now here comes the outside dark money. And they want to use that to drown out your voice because they are afraid of a real progressive winning in this election. This would be a massive defeat for both the establishment Democrats, and Republicans. It shows that even a progressive could win in Texas. And by the way, it's not as if this area is hugely red, right? It's hugely conservative. No, this is a fairly progressive area, fairly progressive district. So how do they have somebody, corporatist, Trump supporter like Henry Cuellar? It's because the establishment loves Cuellar. He is incredibly corrupt. So now the Chamber of Commerce has joined together with the American Workers for Progress. Now, make no mistake, those people, that group is not progressive. They have spent over $700,000 on TV ads in favor of Cuellar, and they give mostly in dark money. Now, the Democratic establishment, as I mentioned before, has already backed Cuellar, which kind of defeats their whole, mantra of we should elect more women. Well, Jessica Cisneros, it's obvious, right? She's a progressive woman. But guess what? The only women, I should say, that the establishment doesn't like are progressive women. That's why they hate the squad. They hate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar. They despise them. Why? Because they're progressive and because they speak out. And they actually vote progressively on issues. And they stand up to the corporate-controlled Democratic Party. They only, by the way, the Democratic Party basically only wants you to elect women who are corporatists. If you're progressive, they are going to fight you viciously. And so they hate progressives. And now, on the Democratic side, you have Republican donors, the Republican Chamber of Commerce, working together with the Democratic establishment to crush a real progressive, to go after and destroy Jessica Cisneros. She needs your help. If you do want to help out, donate to Jessica Cisneros' campaign. Volunteer. Knock on doors if you live in Texas. Do anything that you can to send Henry Cuellar and his corporate money and his dark money donors back to where they belong. Out of our elections. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. Please consider becoming a patron. That's patreon.com/TYTNation. That is the way to support the show. We literally survive thanks to you guys. So we don't, just like Cisneros, we do not get any corporate funding. We don't get funding from the TYT main show or anything like that. This is 100% funded by you guys. So please become a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation, or become a channel member today and help us out. All right, guys. Thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys later.
Please clap.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.